It is wise that we temporarily remove these concentration points by closing all the primary and secondary schools, pre-primary, as well as all the universities and tertiary institutions for 1 month, starting with Friday, the 20th of March, 2020.
Earlier this year, on 10th January, Uganda allowed reopening of schools after being closed for almost 2 years.
We now intend to fully reopen the economy as well as educational and social activities in some staggered manner.
The United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund classified this as the world's longest school closure in history. But were schools, learners, parents, and other stakeholders ready enough? One of the parents at Malaika Nursery and Primary School, located in Kansanga, Kampala, David Kizito, reveals how the presidential national address provided dreadful news about the closing of schools due to COVID-19.
It was a very terrible news.
The closure was effected 2 days after, and over 15 million learners across the country were disrupted, according to the Ugandan authorities. This therefore marked the era of parents taking full responsibility of their children. To many parents, this was a challenge, and for disabled ones like Kizito, who even had not prepared enough, it was worse.
Being a disabled parent, I could not take the measure of having to look after that child by myself. Since here he was being looked after at school, maybe I would have several hours to be with the person, with my son. But when the schools were closed, the predicament was given to me that I was supposed to be looking after the child.
Initially, the closure was meant for 21 days that were later adjusted to more 14 as the pandemic intensified. By 11th March, it had spread to over 114 countries, infecting 118,000 and killing more than 4,291 people across the world, as reported by World Health Organization. Uganda reported its first COVID-19 case on 21st March with a 36-year-old man who had traveled on a business trip to Dubai that later astonishingly increased. This inevitably put the future of schools opening at stake, thus triggering government to introduce remote learning via radio and television. However, it was not effective to many.
Basically, what I used to do, I used to teach, of course, what I also studied in school. I was giving him too much or too little. I used to put some TV shows. I would try to watch them with him. But there was a very hard way, kind of implement what they see on TV.
Most parents therefore resorted to homeschooling, which was also defying the standard operating procedures put by government to control the spread of the virus.
I actually had a tutor to tutor the child during the holidays. That was the beginning, rather during the time of the COVID pandemic. But it wasn't. The government didn't really support it.
Kizito adds that this was very expensive for many people considering the financial situation then.
And in most cases, the tutors used to be the one to come to me. And since that was the time when laying bricks was the job to do, and I was in that job, I basically got a little money, and the financial cost impact was about 5,000 on a day. It wasn't much, but it wasn't small. 5,000 during those 2 years was like 50,000.
Thus opting for other alternatives.
I have a small bricklaying place where I lay my bricks and furniture. So I decided getting clay and soil. If my child start doing what I do,
The lockdown left a shutdown of 40 schools as registered by Kampala City Council Authority, and even those that reopened are struggling. Malaika Nursery and Primary, a specialty school that was purposely built to narrow the societal gap for access to affordable education, did not dodge the blow.
The school had just started growing by the time schools were closed. We were around 98, and we had around 3 classrooms here by 2020. Teachers, we had around 4. Baby class, we had 2, then there was middle and top class. The project had just started peaking, and more children had joined school. Yes, so it wasn't good on my side.
Towards the end of the year 2021, the rate of spread of COVID-19 had reduced, which inspired the reopening, and later government credible sources officially announced the date. This, however, was received with mixed feelings by many Ugandans.
It's kind of a symbiosis relationship of joy and pain. I'm happy they have opened the school. Very happy. I'm sad they have opened the school. The pain of telling your son and your daughter that, you know what, I am going to sell 3 of the rabbits, the only position that you keep keeping, so that I can acquire some little money to top up on your school fees and to buy you some food, and probably the uniform that you used to put on the phone along with you. I need to get you another one. And I would see the pain in their eyes when their bad has to go.
Schools were strictly told to observe certain measures in a virtual meeting that was meant for school proprietors, education umbrella organizations, and international representatives, or else they would not open. But 2 months after the reopening, many Ugandans are still not convinced the education system will soon get back to normal.
The government needs to think of changing education as a whole to make it more holistic, more inclusive, to include all children, irrespective of your background, of your race. They should also try to make education more affordable.
Over 30% of the learners could not return to school due to teenage pregnancies, rated at 22.5%, and early marriages amongst girls aged 10 to 24 years, while 36% of boys had succumbed to child labor, and this was as earlier warned by National Planning Authority. In Chiwafo Zone, Kansanga, most children became unruly, but as leaders partnered with parents to restrain them. However, this was not fully effective in that some did not resume school because of different reasons, including overaging, thus feeling unfit, and others joining business, according to the local Council 1 General Secretary, 𝐷𝐄𝐒𝐒.
And the parents were not used to staying long. The children, the hours, of course, but staying with the children the whole day, from morning to evening, month to month, for 2 years, was quite challenging. The relationship between the parent and the children somehow went bad. The children grew up fast. I don't know the cause, because normally when children are at school, their rate of their growth rate is not at the same as when they are at home, 100%. So you see now they grew up, others joined some other robo groups, and they became somehow unruly. Some got into small businesses and earned some little money. That one also became a problem, because now sending them back at school was a problem. Some even as I talk now, they need to come back to school because they were taken up by those petty businesses they were doing.
Jingo also expresses his concern regarding the measures put in place for some schools to reopen.
Education is okay, they are having quality education, but of course there must be challenges, like the numbers, in the classes. Because say schools were closed for 2 years, those who are still in the S1 and don't complete it, S1, those who are the search for PLE, they were joining the same class, so you can see that accumulation. And the class sizes remain the same, so that condition is there. You are being told to observe the SOPs, where there is no space, because you see we have the same room we had it before. Government should come in and somehow facilitate. Because these people, much as some individuals are doing this as a business, to set up schools, they need to be helped. They need to be given a hand.
For a better education system post-COVID, Kizito suggests that government implements more of hands-on skills in the curriculum because it proved to be a better alternative to many Ugandans for survival during the pandemic.
I would think skills are key and fundamental from infantry level to the children. So we actually survived from those small basic things that before Corona, we never even thought about would make money or make us survive.
He further recommends it to embrace digital transformation in the education sector.
Online teaching would be a very good thing. But the economy we are at, the government policy, as far as internet is concerned, it's so expensive. So expensive to buy those laptops. They should be tax-free. I'm sure they're taxed. That's why their prices are very high. So I have a couple of children to look up, about 5. I cannot afford to buy all of them, even a pad, palm top or a laptop for them to study. And internet is really expensive. And if it is online schooling, you need those two. Those are the fundamental things.
A joint report by United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund, and World Bank indicates that this generation of students risks losing $17 trillion in lifetime earnings in present value, or about 14% of today's global gross domestic product. It further indicates that in low and middle income countries, the share of children living in learning poverty was already above 50% before the pandemic and could reach 70% largely as a result of long school closures and ineffectiveness of remote learning. This risks the future of learning unless action is taken to boost the education system back to its previous state or better than it was before the pandemic.
Government has to change and make education more practical. Maybe they should think beyond the classroom. We should find a way of empowering teachers, to learn skills, so that in case of maybe something could come up we don't know, teachers can be more prepared.
According to a report by 𝐿_Jazeera, about 30% of students might not return to school. And as we make 90 days of reopening of schools in Uganda, we're here at Malaika Nursery and Primary School, where the students are vibrant and the teachers are back to the classroom. However, continuity of education still needs a lot to be done, and they're reaching out to government to support them if continuity of education is to proceed in a better way. Patrick, Media Premier Hub.